Here we go. Episode 8. Welcome back. This is Lot Talk powered by Lotpop. I'm Chris Keene. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm joined by my great friends, Mr. John Anderson, Mr. Ronaldo Leonard. Gentlemen, I can't tell you how excited I am. Number one, I'm still on this crazy high from last week when we had the all great CRM queen, Stacey Ellison. I mean, she was just dropping napalm all over the place. Yeah. I really hope our listeners, our viewers, I hope y'all pick something up. I don't know about you, John. I don't know about you, Ronaldo, but I've been carrying that all through this week. I mean, it's been amazing. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, she was coming from the top turnbuckle with the elbows. And, I mean, there wasn't a conversation that I had with a dealer this last week that some part of what she brought to the table wasn't discussed. Just absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She brought the fire.
Yeah, no, I agree.
She brought the heat.
Yeah, she did.
Oh, yeah.
She's dropping bombs. And I agree with Ronaldo. You know, going into the week and meeting with some dealers, man, that information, you know what? I can't tell you how many times I just referred to the dealers, hey, get on our website, find that episode, man, and watch it and be prepared to take notes on what Stacey had to say, man, because she was on fire, no doubt about it. And it was all relative, and it's all stuff that can turn the tide. So just if any of you guys missed it, go to lottalkpodcast.com and look up, what episode are we on now? 8? Is this 8 today?
We're on number 8, so it was episode number 7.
Look up episode 7 and be prepared to take some notes, man. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. We were blessed to have her on.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. But you know what? Here's the beauty of it. Stacey shares the same mindset we share. We do this podcast for you guys, for our dealer partners, for our brothers and sisters in the automotive community. We are trying to take the suck out of the automotive industry. It's a grind. We know it is. But if we can take everything that we compile from Lotpop, all the different insights we get, all the different things that we hear from coast to coast, border to border. I shouldn't even say coast to coast, border to border anymore, because heck, we're up in Canada now too.
Yeah.
And we have influence over in Europe. We have influence down in Australia. So, I mean, we have influence all over the place. But the biggest thing of why, and we got to give the credit to you, John, because you're the one who came with this, what I thought, and Ronaldo, we kind of looked at each other when we were sitting in that meeting like, what's he saying? But this idea came from you, John, and we got to give you credit for that, to have this podcast, to be able to share this, to cascade it out, and not just from a Lotpop standpoint, but from all the different people that we get the pleasure of crossing paths with, whether it be another third-party company in our industry like ourselves, some of the small franchise or independent dealers in rural America, or large auto groups that we get to do business with. We get to take all that information. We get to take all of that greatness, all of that pain, all of that heartache, and we get to find a way to help take that suck out of this business and continue to make it, for me, working on year 31, as one of the best industries to be in. But we also know that there's tough times, and you're not alone. Listeners, hear me close. Viewers, see the passion in our faces about this. We care about you. And that's why we do this podcast each and every week. As John called it out, lottalkpodcast.com. Go to it. Look at the different episodes that are on there. Fire off some questions to us. We are happy. We'll take any question that you got, whether it's about one of our previous episodes or what we've got going on today. Buckle up, because the title of today's episode, what's your bucket made of? And I can't wait to unpack it. I absolutely can't wait to unpack it. Now, the overall theme of bucket management. You know, a lot of that bucket management really didn't come around, guys, until we started getting inventory management tools or different softwares to be able to house inventory. I don't know about you two, but I can remember when we still had the control log. And that control log, that was the gospel. It was it. If it wasn't on the log, it never happened.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That was yesterday.
Hey, I'll never forget.
Right,
we had it. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. But we had some poor kid, bless his heart. He would log all his stuff in pencil on the log. And I looked at him, I said, "What are you doing?" It was log them up in a pencil. Well, just in case I mess something up, I can erase it and put it. So, bro, think about that for a minute. That log's your protection.
Right.
I can't even talk about it. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Oh yeah.
So, John, did y'all have control logs or did y'all have tablets and chisels? How'd y'all do it?
That was it. There was a big, when you walked in the dealership front door, you pulled back the curtain. There was just this huge stone right there, and they had a hammer and a chisel laying on it. Yeah, you just chipped away. Took you a while to log it up, but you took it seriously because it took you so much time to log it. You weren't letting go of them, man. That's for sure.
Nobody falling through the cracks.
No, because you're by the time you got done logging them, you had blisters on your hands, man. So you took that stuff seriously, right? Funny. Instead of going into the dealership every day going, I have to, you were going in there with I get to mentality, right? Because you didn't want those blisters. You didn't want those blisters to go to waste.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you had strong shoulders back then. Hold that 5-pound mallet up.
100%. 100%.
Hey, we evolved. We evolved though, and I ain't even talking about a CRM. Because remember we had the keyboard. Remember it had the 0 through 9, and then the 0 through 9, and then you took the last 2 digits of the stock number. That's where the key went.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all remember that? But then we evolved.
Yep.
Remember when key track came around?
Get the key machine. Yeah.
Key machines were big, man. Hey, listen, key machines are an awesome way to, we're sitting there talking about, what's your bucket made out of, right? I still think key machines are an awesome way, man, because you can pull that key machine report, right? A vehicle's been sitting on your lot for 21 days and the key's never been pulled. What's that telling you, So there's still a lot of ways those key machines, let alone looking for keys all the damn time, right? Man, oh, man.
Hey, listen, I don't know about y'all, but we had some slick salespeople, even with the key machine. They'd open the key machine up and just take the key off the popsicle and then close the drawer.
Oh, yeah. Put the box back in, empty. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they go hide the key in their desk because they had a customer coming in on it later.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I ever did that.
Or you go and take advantage of the green pea, Have your buddy run around there and say, "Hey, Tommy, can you pitch monkey keys for me?" I'll put them back in there as soon as he gets back.
Oh yeah.
The
keys never went back.
Guys have a demo for the weekend. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Who had his keys last? That was Tommy.
Remember the keyboards? You guys ever have a keyboard where you just had hooks on a piece of plywood? And then there was multiple keys on each. Oh my gosh, man!
Yeah,
carry those boards out
for the lot party.
The things we did, man. Especially the lot party. Coming from the Midwest, working up in the Midwest, man. It was always enjoyable to carry those out in a foot of snow, man. Park them out in the lot party in a foot of snow. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Wow.
I tell you what wasn't enjoyable. What wasn't enjoyable about that keyboard is when the manager would get upset that people weren't putting the keys back on right, and then would walk over there and grab the keyboard and shake it and dump every key off and say, "Y'all figure it out."
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. God. Yeah. That's when all of a sudden I had a stomach ache.
Don't you miss that stuff, man? Don't you miss it?
I never did that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I ain't gonna lie, I did.
I'm not buying it. Not buying it.
I did it when I became used car manager, and I couldn't find a key, and it was supposed to be at 37, and it was over on 22 or somewhere where it's supposed to be. I've taken the whole keyboard, thrown it out of the showroom, going, man, y'all fix that. But yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I did it.
It's just tradition, traditions you pass on is all it is.
A rite of passage.
Well,
it's a rite of passage. Exactly.
Yeah, you weren't a real manager until you threw something across the showroom floor.
Yeah, but then all that stopped when HR came around. You couldn't do that anymore. When they decided to put an HR department in a dealership.
Be quiet, Brett's listening.
He's probably taking note.
He's cringing.
Taking note on us. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, we got a pretty jam-packed set of thoughts here today. But before we dive into those jam-packed thoughts, I mean, Ronaldo, in the world of bucket management, the theme of what we've got going on for these next several weeks here, I mean, what are some things that you're seeing out there in the industry? Any new news that you've heard of, or trends or insights or anything like that?
Gosh, I mean, no, I think that as far as bucket management goes, you got two schools of thought. Well, actually, there's really three. First one is the velocity method. You want to make sure that you turn that inventory enough times during the year to maximize their investment that you're managing. But then you got your Ron Popeils out there. We bring it to market, we price it, set it, and forget it. And then you get guys that are just clueless, just going with the flow. It's going to sell eventually, but then they give you every excuse in the book. But John and I were talking earlier. It's that situation where you're basically trying to get a return on a bucket of cash that you got, and you're trying to get as much money back, a return on the investment that you're making. But the best way to do that is to take the information that's most pertinent to you and that basket of assets that you have, and turn it into more money. That's it. But I hadn't really seen any new epiphanies that are that are changing the way people approach it.
Yeah. John, I think I don't remember if it was this week or last week, one of the two, but it's almost like we're hearing some of them same old reasons of why we're holding inventory for as long as we're holding it that we were hearing pre-pandemic. And it's almost like the guys have defaulted to the old excuses and they're coming back to life again. What do you think, Anderson?
Yeah. That's interesting, Chris, that you say that. And I have heard that. And I part of what I was trying to dig into is, where's that emanating from, that sentiment. And, I think, unfortunately, or fortunately, COVID was good in a lot of ways, right? Coming out of COVID for the business, right? You guys sold a lot of vehicles coming out, and quite frankly, made a lot of money. But it was a little bit negative because I think as dealership owners and managers and staff, I think we kind of felt like that was a baseline moving forward, and it certainly wasn't. I mean, that was a rare time in our business. I don't know that we'll ever see it again. And so if you're looking back to that and you're comparing what's happening now to that and thinking that, there should be similar things going on, I just think you're kidding yourself a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that's why you have some of that out there in the marketplace. It's interesting. I was reading an article this week that it was just talking about key insights from automotive customer experience. Widewall is the company that performed it. And I think, if I remember correctly, as I was reading, they interviewed 18,000 people. So, I mean, pretty good.
Pretty good sample set.
Pretty good sample set, right? And so as I was scanning down through, because, we're talking about bucket management, and we come off last week with Stacy, right? And we were talking about lead management, right? And then I look at top 10 topics in 2024, top topics most often mentioned by dealership customers, split by positive and negative reviews. And so it's interesting. The number one, what would you think the number one positive review was on in the dealership?
Positive review?
Yeah.
Somewhere in fixed ops?
Well, it could be. It was staff, right? So just to give you an idea how much, right? That's number one. It was 76% of the voting was on staff, right? So that, and then when you shift over to the negative side, right? What do you think the top two? The top one was 41%. The second negative was 25%. Randomly, what would you think of?
Negative?
F&I experience and negotiation of the deal itself.
Time in the process.
You're kind of hitting around it, but it's number one was communication, and number two was staff again. So staff was on both the positive and the negative side, right? Yeah. And so when we're talking about, we're talking about bucket management, right? That's what we're hitting on. What's your bucket made out of, right? So just connect the dots there, right? How important is it that our people are, one, communicating with our customers and communicating in a way that our customers are pleased with, right? And so we say this all the time. I think when I was in a dealership, I didn't think about it this way, right? Because when I'm sitting in the bricks and mortar operation of the store, everything's right in front of me. I've got my sales team. I have customers on the floor. I have my inventory out on the lot. So I'm focused on that bricks and mortar operation, but we're also operating another dealership, and that's our virtual dealership. And a lot of times in my bricks and mortar, I can get a good understanding of how communication's going, how my staff's acting. But how well do you have a handle on how communication's going and how your staff's acting on your virtual dealership? Because that's where it all starts nowadays. And I know I get some disagreement with the percentages of people that start on our virtual lot that end up on our physical lot, and we can debate that. You'd see different percentages, but I think everybody would agree that a majority of our customers do start on our virtual lot. And so when I read this, I was like, man, that makes sense, right? How are we communicating? Ronaldo and Chris, how many times do we pop open a CRM and check for the quality of the conversation that's happening? I think Stacy addressed that in both episodes that we had her on about the quality of the conversation. So when you talk about staff and communication, and that could be fixed operations or variable operations, either side, right? So it just jumped off the page at me based on what we've been talking about. Is like, man, I couldn't agree more with the buying public out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're the ones paying us the profits. They're the ones that help keep us in business. So if we're not communicating with them in the fashion that they are expecting, or if we're not meeting that consumer public where they're at, the dotted line that you're putting back to bucket management is if we're not doing that communication in the fashion that we should be doing it, our inventory is going to do nothing but bleed through. It doesn't matter how well it's merchandised. It doesn't matter how well it's priced. It doesn't matter where it's ranked. It doesn't matter the day supply. None of that matters. If when we think about the number 1 and 1A job of a used car manager, job number 1 is fill the lot with the inventory. Job number 1A is take and drive activity to that vehicle in that parking spot. But if we don't vertically align inventory management and lead management together, then we're going to have nothing but bucket problems in our inventory. So I 100% understand and see the correlation there when you talk about communication, because if we're not communicating properly with the consumer public out there as they find vehicles on our lot that fits their wants and needs, has the hot buttons and buying motives, like I said, it doesn't matter if you got 65 pictures of that vehicle and you're the best priced one out there, or the best ranked one out there, the best valued one out there. None of that matters. And that attributes to either success is selling in that first 30, as we preach here at Lotpop. When we work the facts, we want to sell in that first 30. But if you ain't communicate with the customer, that inventory is just going to continue to bleed through, and you're going to sell really late in the cycle, and you're going to be really upset because your gross profits are compressed. I get it 100%, John. That makes so much sense.
Well, it's interesting while you were talking, Chris, I was looking back at the article, and I just this happened to click with me on the positive side, because they give you the top 5 on each side, right? So on the positive side, staff was number 1, communication was number 5. On the negative side, communication was number 1, staff was number 2. So just think about that, right? The positive reviews were because the staff had great communication with those customers, irregardless of what the situation was, right? Because if you look at the positive, it was staff, helpfulness, friendliness, knowledgeable, and communication. None of that has to do with inventory or service issues or nothing, because in the way that we're communicating to the consumer, right? Even if it's something that may not be the most positive thing that we need to tell them, we're communicating it to them, and we're doing it. We're being friendly and helpful with it, right? And that's what resonates with people. So, we talk about it all the time. And we see it, right? Quite frankly, we track that, right? So we see when dealers are communicating with their customers every 3 days, how consistent their sell rates are. And typically they're selling out of that fresh inventory because they're selling across the board, because they're consistently communicating with their customers. So yeah, it's this didn't surprise me, but it the way they contrasted each other surprised me a little bit. So.
And the beautiful thing about that is just the fact that to keep that from moving from a positive review or report to becoming a negative, I mean, it's so easy to be proactive on just by simply auditing how we're communicating with our prospects in that process, to make sure that the message that we're sending is on point. And like you said, John, I mean, prospects or customers, they won't mind receiving a negative message. They just want to be in the loop.
Yeah.
They just want you to talk to them and let them know what's going on. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come to me and say, well, how do I talk to them about this? Just tell them what's going on. Just have a conversation with them. And 9 times out of 10, you don't get the response you're expecting. You're expecting fire and brimstone, but they're understanding because you took the time to keep them in the loop and communicate with them.
Spot on.
Yeah. And so, and you mentioned it just a minute ago, Chris, if you've got that arrow in your quiver and everybody across the board is using it on a regular basis, bucket management, which is what we're focusing on, comes a little less hard to accomplish.
Oh yeah, you're
an obstacle out of your way, right?
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this even a little bit deeper, because John, I know you got to meet with one of our dealer partners here in a little bit, and
Yes,
I want to get your 2 cents worth. I want to get your 2 cents worth on something very specific. So obviously this week, kind of made me even think about it, going, hey, what's your bucket made of? Well, where that came from is in some conversations that we've had, amongst us, amongst our team here at Lotpop, amongst our dealer partners, and some of the crossroads and challenges that our dealer partners are getting at, and thinking about the last 4 years when everybody's been able to yield these really high gross margins and have really high net returns. The challenge that we see a lot of people reverting back to pre-pandemic, now that we are well post-pandemic, is holding out for gross, but costing yourself gross. So take a look at this. And for those that are listening, I'll do my best to describe it. But Anderson, putting yourself back in a dealership again. Ronaldo, putting yourself back in a dealership. We're operating our dealer's money, trying to make more money with his money. And we're doing it with metal. So obviously the goal is to turn the metal into money. But then thinking about some of these dealers that are suffering in this bucket management with holding out for gross, consider this for a minute. John, if you're a store, Ronaldo, if you're a store that is stocking 150 units and you're retailing on average 90, that gives you a 7.2 turn rate. And if you're running $2,500 on the front, $2,500 on the back, not even counting what you're picking up in dock fee, but just $2,500 on the front, $2,500 on the back. Okay. If we are doing that, that makes us a $5.4 million used car department. And it gives us an average age in inventory of 51 days. But if we could get out of our own way for a minute and we can sell what we stock and turn that inventory 12 times, and even if you had to sacrifice $1,500 a copy on the front, make it $1,000 on the front, and just say that you didn't work the good old cash down versus payment to give you a little bit more F&I opportunity, and you still rated your same quarter on the back. John, if you were back in a store and I said, hey, well, I'm going to cut your gross $1,500 on the front, but you're going to make more money, how hard is that to believe?
It's a great question, Chris. I think it depends on, what your background is. I think for most dealers, I think we know from bringing on onboarding new dealers, that's a difficult concept for them to. Some of them get it. I mean, some of them get it. Some of them are already good operators, right? And they're turning their inventory, but a lot of them don't understand that, and they're having trouble putting that together, thinking that it's going to cost them gross, right? And we talked about this a little bit this morning before we jumped on here. When I hear dealers talk about their average PVR and they're throwing up, we're at $3,000 a copy. My first question is, are you selling what you're stocking on the lot? And
Bingo.
they'll tell me, well, so you got 125 in stock. What are you selling? Well, we're selling around 80 out of 125. Well, then you're not $3,000 a copy, because you're not selling what you're stocking. And that, I think that's what you're pointing to here, Chris, is, look, you can tell me you're at $3,000 a copy, but you've got inventory sitting out there that you're not selling. It's bleeding through. And so how do you know, unless you're selling your entire inventory, what your true numbers are? You can't, because you don't have a whole picture on that.
You're 100% spot on. So let's think about this from a used car manager standpoint that traditionally is paid off the gross profit of the store. That's why they sit there and try to run that 25 on the front, 25 on the back, or whatever your numbers are.
Right.
Okay. Because they're managing from the gross. But change gears and you put yourself as an operator, or a dealer principal, you're looking at that 51 days of average inventory and going, okay, that's cool. We're running $5,000 a copy, but how much am I giving back on the backside of it? Yep. And if we could control that inventory to sell in the first 30, it doesn't matter if you're paid on the gross or the net. What ends up happening is you reduce your days in inventory by 21 days. Think about that number, even just think about your holding cost.
Mm-hmm.
And you pick up $75,000 in gross profit a month, and you pick up $900,000 worth of gross.
Sure.
Think about that, Ronaldo, for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I firmly believe part of the bucket management challenge, and there is nothing wrong with wanting to be the best of the best of the best, right, and have this extremely respectful or super high PVR. There's nothing wrong with that, right, but at what cost?
Yeah. I mean, in the long run, it ends up costing you gross. What is it? I love it when you say, you're chasing fictitious gross. And
Fugazi. I call it Fugazi.
Fugazi, yeah. But when you're looking at it and you're trying to chase that gross number, I think about it every dealer that we come in contact with and we begin to work with. And it's like clockwork and guaranteed after the first 45, 60 days. Hey, we're not making gross. There's a trade-off there. You're getting that lift in the number of units. Continue doing what you're doing. All right. We'll get the gross eventually once we master the basics of bucket management and you're selling the majority of your inventory in that first 30 days. It'll come, but we got to get that lift in units first. But overall, once you get that lift in the number of units that you're selling, you take a smaller gross, but the whole bucket at the end of the month when you're selling your inventory, stocking what you're selling what you're stocking, you get that rise in that gross profit. Got to be patient, got to be disciplined. But apparently 80% of car dealers are from the state of Missouri. And it all just kind of boils down to, what can you show me? And they just panic because they don't have 100% trust until they've built the processes in. And it's just one of those things. But you got to have that conversation and convince them to trust you. And eventually, like my granddad said, don't come out in the wash, it comes out in the rinse. And
100%.
They begin to see the concept at work, and that's when you get the buy-in. But it works 100% of the time.
100%.
Yeah.
100% of the time. And for y'all that didn't understand that reference of Missouri, just as a reminder, Missouri is the show me state. So we ain't picking on folks from Missouri.
No,
it's the show me state. So
nothing but love for them. Yeah.
One of the most beautiful states out there. I mean, my gosh. It's
Absolutely.
absolutely beautiful state.
Absolutely.
But you bring something up though. Yes, when you start really working that velocity portion of it, and shameless plug here, but this is why Jason Rice, our president, founder, and CEO, developed Lotpop, because he recognized that, cool, we can turn the inventory very fast, but wait a minute, we forgot about this other piece here, which was our last segment. And then, of course, Stacy coming in last week, diving a little bit deeper on lead management. Once you get that velocity going, now it's managing your inventory via the leads. And every single time, Ronaldo, how we've seen it, we get that dealer turning that inventory, as you said, and that growth starts declining.
Right.
And they're like, oh my gosh, cool. I'm selling a bunch of cars, but I'm not making any money. Okay, cool. Here's the next step.
Yep.
Are you looking at the leads that you got on that inventory of the first 30? Because how many times have you seen it, Ronaldo? They got so hyper focused on turning that inventory that they started forgetting about the lead management. And we start seeing inside those leads either active lead and a car's in stock and they're not working them at the rate they should be,
right?
Or because they're turning that inventory so fast, they still have active leads in there. Car of interest is sold, but there's 3, 4, 5, 6 more vehicles in stock that align with what that customer was originally looking at. And we ain't even calling them back, presenting that fresh, brand new inventory to them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's such a simple concept, but as you mentioned, we get so focused on the inventory and we forget about all the hard work we put into generating those leads. And well, I was amazed when I had the first conversation with you about Lotpop, and what was it? 75 to 80% of the activities that salespeople do on a daily basis have absolutely nothing to do with selling a car, because they're not focused on working those activities around the inventory or the leads that have been generated on the vehicles that we had in inventory. With 80% of the leads you have come in are on vehicles that are no longer in inventory. Why not match the two together? And
spot on.
Yeah, it's just one of those things we kind of got off the mark as we continued to develop with new technology and focusing on other parts of the dealership. Now the buzz is AI. And when we keep things simple, you got people who are looking to buy something and you actually have it in inventory. Let's put the two together. And once that's the part. Yeah, that's the part that is missing with a lot of folks in trying to manage their bucket inventory or manage their buckets, making sure they don't have bleed through. It's going back to that fresh inventory that we have in. Do we have a lead for it? Back in the day, you had your hosses that were sitting on the showroom floor, and we did walk-arounds on every new vehicle that we traded for. How many times did you see somebody say, "Oh, I need to call Mr. Jenkins on that"? Because we were working through those files every day.
Yeah.
And
that tickler file.
Absolutely. And when the CRM is managing those leads on time, folks fall through the cracks. But if you have those opportunities in front of you, as that inventory changes and you match them up, you don't have to sit back and wait for leads to be generated on a unit. You've got viable candidates, and all you have to do is reach out to them and manage that process of following up with them until, what is it? There's only one reason why you wouldn't call somebody who is looking to buy a vehicle, and that's if you see their name in the obituary.
Exactly. That's the only dead deal out there, is if you see Bob Jones in the obituary. Outside of that, they're still viable in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. So just connecting those dots, because 56% to 60% of people who buy a vehicle at a dealership buy something other than the vehicle that brought them into the dealership. And so
something completely different than what they looked at.
Absolutely. So we don't know if they're specifically looking for that Toyota Camry or if they're looking for an intermediate car in that particular price bucket or price range. All we have to do is present them the option, and they'll do the rest. Do the rest.
Which ties into the bucket management. But okay, so let's think about this for a minute. If we go back to what the number 1 and 1A job is of the used car manager, fill the parking spot and then drive activity to it.
Right.
Okay. And once we do that, now we have an opportunity to manage those buckets. And for y'all that are not 100% sure what we're talking about bucket management. We're talking about inventory in that first 0 to 15 days, inventory in that 16 to 30 day, inventory in that 31 to 45, and so forth. And the objective of it is to obviously sell as much of that inventory in the first 30 days. So that way you could retain the most amount of profitability as you can, or mitigate as minimum loss as you can. But that's just one portion of it. And we're really kind of got a little ahead of ourselves here, Ronaldo, because what we're talking about is when we get that activity on it, or when we have activity on vehicles like we have in stock.
Right.
But before you get to that point, I mean, think about this. There's 5 big hitters out there in inventory management. I haven't seen an inventory management tool yet that is new to the market. So there's 5 of them that have kind of been around for a cool minute now.
Yep.
But they all have one thing in common. They're talking about that market data.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to really understand what the market data is, because how we look at things at Lotpop is we look at, yes, that market data that's out there, because when I first get a vehicle in, I've got to understand, or when I'm first looking at that vehicle, whether it's a trade-in, a street purchase, a service lane, auction, whatever, yeah, I need to understand that market data, and I need to see how that vehicle's been traveling. But
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, in efforts to help my bucket management, don't I need to know how my store in my market with my people, how they've been selling?
Absolutely.
I mean, what's your thought, Ronaldo?
I think that's the biggest misconception, or actually, that's the biggest mistake that we make. So when we talk about what your bucket is made of, I want to know what type of information are you using. It's like if I turn on the weather and they're telling me for Colorado, there's going to be 6 inches of snow. Yeah, that's true. 15 miles from me, 12,000 feet up in the air in the top of the mountain. But down here, it's 60 degrees, totally different environment. And so the data is completely different. I cannot use that data set up in the mountain to plan my day. Because if I walk out in a parka, it's not going to be a very pretty outcome. And it's the same thing with being able to drill down to get data that is pertinent to how a particular vehicle is going to sell in your market, in your store, and with your people. Right. And I love the analogy you gave me yesterday when we were talking about how you have 2 different stores side by side with the same vehicle. One's going to sell it in 10 days. The next, it may sit there for 60. And why is that? It was because one set of salespeople are going to be a little more comfortable selling that vehicle than the other, more knowledgeable, and have a rapport with a set of prospects where they can move that vehicle a little bit faster. And you mentioned that there were 5 big guys out there that don't provide that data. So how does a dealer get it, Chris? How do you get information that's going to be pertinent to, the crew you get out there on the sales floor and the managers you have managing them? Yeah.
Well, that's where you have to vertically align your inventory management and your lead management, lay those 2 things together, which, again, another shameless plug, that's what we do. But even beyond that, I mean, as we continue to, talk about that bucket management, I got to decide, do I want a bucket made of cardboard to where that water going to leak through and bleed through here before long, or do I want a solid bucket made of metal,
right,
to where I'm just bulletproof at all times? And to unpack that analogy just a little bit more that I shared with you, because I shared it with a new dealer partner that's coming on with us, and they're a individual Cadillac store, and across street from him, he has an Acura store.
Yep.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, if you drive in every single day and you keep seeing Acura TL sitting on the front line, but they keep changing them out, and you look and those cars are nowhere to be found.
Yep. And
then you go inside, you look inside your inventory management tool, and you pull that Acura TL up, and inside your quote unquote market, it says it's a 47-day supply piece of inventory. And you're looking at it going, man, guy across the street that's in my quote unquote market
Yeah.
He keeps selling them accurate TLs. And I'm a Cadillac store. I'm
That's
a
a good
prestigious brand. I
Mhm.
got good customers coming in. So I'm going to go buy me 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these.
Give me some of those.
And then 60 days from now, half of them are still hanging out like wet clothes. But then I asked him, I said, if you do that with your store and put those accurate TLs in there, what's the odds of those cars still sitting there if you now take those cars and go buy those accurate TLs, but then you go across the street and poach 2 of their salespeople and bring them over as salespeople for you now? What do you think the first set of vehicles those salespeople are going to gravitate to and sell? Is it going to be a Cadillac SRX, or is it going to be an Acura TL?
Going straight to that TL.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's no different than the Ford used car manager going to work for the Chevy store, and 3 weeks later you see a bunch of F-150s and Fusions sitting on the lot. So it's no different, because it's a comfort of what that guy knows. So that's what they end up stocking.
Right.
So that's why we say in our store, in our market, with our people, that when you could understand what you're doing there, layering that with your inventory or lead management, that's where you stand a better chance of selling out of that first 30 and controlling those buckets and stopping that bleed through. 100% every time. So,
and that's the one, I think that's the one piece that we failed to have focused on in the past, you know, that we bring to the table that is making the largest difference when it comes to bucket management for the dealers that we partner with. Yeah. How about we move on to a question that we got this past week? I had a dealer, a new dealer, that training and onboarding, and he asked me, when do you recommend that we look at pricing on vehicles as we're managing those buckets? How often should we change pricing? How often should we look at pricing in order to manage those buckets through? What would you have told him if you had that question posed to you?
I mean, there's actually 2 things, Ronaldo. And I get that question myself pretty often, but very specific to the dealer that asked you that question this week. There's 2 things to that. Number one, I'm not making pricing decisions based upon a clock.
Right.
I'm going to make pricing decisions based upon activity or lack thereof. So if the vehicle has activity on it, then why would I take a recommendation that you haven't had a price change in X amount of days? So that would tell me I need to go change the price. If I did anything, I'd raise the price if I've got activity on it, because that's showing a high demand and obviously a shorter supply of inventory. So that's number one. But as a golden rule of thumb, and my mentor taught me this back in 99, when I first became a used car manager, he says, Chris, when you look at your inventory, you need to look at it in this mindset. And you need to look at it in 7, 14, 21, and 30 days. But I'm going to put a pin in that for a second, because in today's time, what we have to really be in understanding of is that 15 days in inventory is the new 30 days in inventory, and 30 days in inventory is the new 45 days in inventory.
Right.
Okay. And 45 is our new 60. Okay. Now, let me unpin what I was just talking about in 7, 14, 21, 30. Barring that you've got your reconditioning in check. Okay. I've always 99 through today, and I recommend this to dealers, and we have a lot of really successful dealer partners of ours here at Lotpop that follow this methodology, and they're successful. They're turning their inventory, more than 12 times a year. They're selling more than 65, 70% of their inventory in the first 30.
Right.
And they subscribe to this pricing strategy question that you're asking, Ronaldo.
Mm-hmm.
What it is in that first 7 days, I'm going to price the vehicle at or above the rim to see if my market has shifted because of that supply and demand. For instance, if my market is showing, based upon my data, that I've been selling at 99%, then I may go try that car on at 100, 101, 102% for the first 7 days.
Right.
But if by day 7, I'm not getting any activity, by the time I get to day 7, then I'm going to start moving that thing a little bit closer to how we do sell. By the time I get to day 14, I'm pricing that car based upon how we sell.
Right. Right.
That car gets to day 21. It gets to day 21. Then I'm going to start getting a little aggressive. And in between day 21 and day 30, I may be looking at a different strategy now. Right. I may have to start looking at a wholesale strategy. And if I do, by the time I get to day 30, I'm going to put it more along the lines of a wholesale number. So that way I could jet the vehicle.
Yep.
It may be at a wholesale dollar, but I'm gaining a retail customer.
Right.
So that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I mean, when you think about it and realizing 15 is the new 30, 30 is the new 45, but having your wholesale disposition in mind from day one. But also, I mean, we're gauging that activity that we're generating with that strategy and finding the sweet spot sooner rather than later, and maximizing on the overall profitability of the inventory that you're bringing in. I love it. I love it. And I shared that with my dealer, and we'll see. We'll see what he does with it, but I'll definitely follow behind and keep an eye on him, make sure that he's following suit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So definitely. And I will say this, for all the listeners out there, definitely, shoot me an email, Keen, that's CKEE, N as in Nancy, E, at lotpop.com. If you have any more questions on a pricing strategy like that, I'll be happy to answer them. Or if you're watching this podcast on your favorite, place to watch a podcast, or on YouTube or what have you, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what your pricing strategy is. We would love to be able to share what you guys do, and if it's effectively getting you those 12 turns you're looking for to be able to run that volume and grow simultaneously. If what you're doing is enabling you to sell in that first 30, 65, 75% of your sales coming out of that first 30, but yet still turning that volume at the same time, we would love to hear what strategy you guys have, because what we have is not the gospel,
right?
But for now it is, because it's working, and it has been working. As I shared with you, I've been doing it since 99 that way, and still coaching it to this day. But if there's something else out there we've never heard of, we would love to be able to hear from you. So drop a comment below.
Absolutely.
But what's really important to let our viewers know and let our listeners know.
Yes, sure.
NADA is around the corner.
Nolans.
Booth 1219. We are going to have a lot of our staff there, and we would love to continue to unpack bucket management with you down in New Orleans, booth 1219. Come see us. I'd love to hear what other people are doing, or if you just need help with it and want some new thoughts and ideas, come by and see us at booth 1219, NADA 2025 down in New Orleans. Ronaldo, any closing thoughts from you before we sit there and let our automotive community know one more time how much we love them? Anything from you, Ronaldo?
The only thing that I would add is that, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So we're always open to different viewpoints, different strategies. But if anybody has any questions on how they can dial in their bucket management, we'd love to have the opportunity to have that conversation with them and show them exactly how we can tie those dots together for them so that they can improve the processes that they have in place and make sure that they get a little bit more efficient in managing those buckets and maximizing their overall profit potential of the inventory. Yeah. So give us a shout. We'd love to have an opportunity to share our thoughts, best practices with you, see what you're doing, and then evaluate exactly how we can help you duplicate your wins and, as Chris said, mitigate your losses moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, listen, viewers, thank you for tuning in. Same bat time, same bat channel next week.
Yep.
On behalf of Mr. Ronaldo Leonard, Mr. John Anderson, our entire Lotpop family, I'm Chris Keene, one of your co-hosts. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week. Take care now, guys.